And we are live. What's up, everybody? Welcome. Get things started in a moment. Just getting everything set up and we'll be ready to go. Hope everyone's day's going well. Got a whole lot to talk about. Going into the rankings tonight, going into college football this coming week. So much to talk about. Big episode. Okay. Almost set up and ready to go. Stupid ass. Here we go. That is set up. Almost ready to go. Alrighty, let's begin. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to this week's episode of Benny in the Booth podcast. On this week's episode, we've got Cy Young Award and MVP award winners to go through, which thankfully were not even the best up, unlike AL Manager of the Year. NFL Week 11 recap with Week 12 predictions and College Football Week 3 recap, which had some crazy games to go over, and a look into this coming week's big games, with it being last week of the regular season and rivalry week, all setting up for the conference championship games in the first week of December. Let's get into it. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to episode 55 of Benny in the Booth podcast. Thank you so much for the support to this point. I very much do appreciate it. I was able to do it earlier this week, because I am doing it for my college dorm this week, being that it's Thanksgiving and how it works out. My one class on Wednesdays is on Zoom or pre-recorded. So I'm gonna be going home tomorrow instead of Wednesday. And so not worth it for me to go home today if I'm going home tomorrow anyways. So I'm doing the podcast from here today. Rankings video, I'm not sure where I'm going to do it from yet. We'll see. NBA, until further notice, I'm basically just going to not do it on the podcast. And I hate to, do it, but, I just am not as much into it as I used to be. And I want to be able to put out content on the podcast I feel happy to put out. And just the way I've been doing it is not a way I'm happy to put it out. It's been kind of upsetting and frustrating personally. And I want to be able, and I'm happy with how I do MLB. I'm happy with how I do NFL, college football, but just not with NBA. And until further notice, maybe I'll just stick to during the playoffs, I'll do it. But for now, podcast is just going to be NFL, MLB, college football, and March Madness of college basketball until further notice. So sorry to be saying it, but at the end of the day, it's what has to come to fruition, just based on my own personal things and me wanting to make this podcast fun for both me and for everyone that watches the podcast. Moving on. So, the MLB award winners, Cy Young and MVP, as I announced the last episode and from the college football playoff rankings, Rookie of the Year and Manager of the Year. So Cy Young, AL was between Justin Verlander, Dylan Cease, and Alek Manoah, and they made the right decision that Justin Verlander won it. Though the biggest surprise, he won it unanimously. Well, I mean, then again, it wasn't as surprising because the other candidates were valid, but Verlander really had a ridiculous season that was Cy Young-esque and very worthy of the award. He won it. Congrats to him. The NL's Cy Young Award winner, was between Sandy Alcantara, Max Fried, who had won 20 games, which I was looking it up, and it turns out is not as, it's a bit more frequent than I thought it was. I thought it's probably been a few years since a 20-game winner. Literally one of the Cy Young candidates from this year won 20 games last year. That's an NL candidate, and Julio Urias, and he's back again in the candidates. It's him, Fried, and Sandy Alcantara. But as expected and not screwed up by the voters, Sandy Alcantara won the NL Cy Young Award. But what was the surprise was he won it unanimous as well, which that was a much bigger surprise to me than Verlander, because I thought Fried would have at least a bit of a shot with winning 20 games. I don't know much about Urias, but more Fried, and the fact it went unanimous was just pow, mind blown. But that's Cy Young. MVP AL did go to Aaron Judge in the end. Makes sense. Ohtani had a great season, but at the end of the day, once Judge hit 60, it was under lock for MVP. Finally getting MVP after getting written off in 2017 thanks to cheating Altuve. Not going to talk about 17. And NL, which makes sense, it was between Arenado and Goldschmidt. Did go to Goldschmidt, actually announced by his own teammate and former multiple-time MVP in the National League, Albert Pujols. And as all the wrap on MLB awards, baseball's basically on wrap. Well, there's going to be off-season stuff here and there, but most of it, except for off-season stuff, is under wrap until Hall of Fame ballots are announced and who isn't making the Hall of Fame and who's not. So baseball news since the last time we talked. The Seattle Mariners, after getting Teoscar Hernandez, actually traded an outfielder of theirs, Kyle Lewis, to the Arizona Diamondbacks for outfielder/catcher Cooper Hummel. Basically going from one outfield situation into another outfield situation, because they have Kyle Lewis, Dalton Varsho, technically Ketel Marte can play outfield. They have a bunch of outfielders there, so that's going to be interesting, including prospects that got called up last year. The Mets acquired right-hander Eliezer Hernandez and Jeff Brigham from Miami Marlins for minor league right-hander Franklin Sanchez and a player to be named later or Cash. Solid pitchers to get for the Mets. I don't know much about the prospect they gave up. IKF, to the shock of everyone, is returning to the Yankees, agreed on a 1-year, $6 million contract with the Yankees to stay at least another year. Could have been tendered, but he did not in the end. Gio Urshela, which this happened right before Shops, and this was like out of nowhere. For the second year in a row, and for the third time in his career, gets traded, this time from the Minnesota Twins to the Los Angeles Angels from right-hander, minor league right-hander Alejandro Hidalgo. I kind of feel bad for him because that's 3 trades in like his career and 2 in the last 2 years, but hopefully it works out better in LA than it did in Minnesota. I don't know much about what they got back, and Cody Bellinger is no longer a Dodger. His career with the Dodgers is over. He has officially been non-tendered and released. He is looking surprisingly actually for only a 1-year deal for this year. I guess more of just like a prove it kind of deal. We'll see what happens. Let's see if there's anything new find on Twitter. That is the latest in the MLB offseason department moves wise. Yeah. That is the latest. All right, so that's MLB part of the podcast. Let's jump to college football, actually. I want to start with college football. What a week it actually was. Some teams a bunch of teams had some scared, barely escaping with some wins. Let's go over it. Georgia barely beating Kentucky 16-6. Not a good sign to me. I know Kentucky's good, but only 16 points from your offense ain't a good thing. Definitely a bit concerning, but I doubt they're going to be dropping in the rankings. Ohio State, Maryland actually ended up a lot closer than I thought it was. And the score really does not tell you the story. And the score really is what it was because Ohio State got a field goal to make it a 6-point game. And then on second down, they had a scoop and score, strip sack fumble, recovered by Steel Chambers for a touchdown as Ohio State survived to beat Maryland at Maryland 43-30. Talia Tagovailoa, to his younger brother, who's the starting quarterback for Maryland, did get hurt on that fumble play, but he said it's just a bruised knee and he is okay. Jake Moody, game-winning 35-yard field goal as Michigan survives Illinois 19-17. Griffin Kell, after being rushed into a field goal attempt because they had no timeouts to set up the field goal, knocked a game-winning 40-yard field goal as number 4 TCU beats Baylor 29-28. South Carolina knocks number 5 Tennessee from college football playoff possibilities 63-38. Complete blowout from South Carolina. Number 12 Oregon beat number 10 Utah 2017. And Oklahoma beat number 22 Oklahoma State in the Bedlam Bowl, or I forget what their rivalry is called. It's like Bedlam or something like that. 28-13. That is what has happened. And then a bunch of big games this week. Michigan, Ohio State. That's a recap for week 12, by the way. Michigan, Ohio State, a big game this week. Which, to my surprise, like I would have thought, okay, maybe a 1 or like Ohio State being favored by like 1 or 2 or 3 or like, but they're 7.5 favorites over Michigan. And keep in mind, as of right now, assuming the rankings don't drop tonight, they're number 2. It's number 2 versus number 3, not number 2 versus unranked or 3 versus unranked or 3 versus 10. This is 2 and 3 in the country, which completely makes sense. And yet, Ohio State's a 7.5 favorite. I do not understand it. Not saying Ohio State ain't going to win. It's just, I'm surprised by America's line. Another key game to look out for, TCU against Iowa State, as they're still trying to remain undefeated and still have a chance in college football playoffs. And the others here and there as well. But this week is also a interesting situation for the Big Ten West. And the fight for the Big Ten West crown to be in the Big Ten championship game in Indy the following week is between Iowa, Purdue, Illinois, and Minnesota. Minnesota faces Wisconsin. Iowa faces Northwestern. Purdue faces Indiana. And Iowa faces Nebraska. And it actually is a very interesting situation. I intentionally wanted to look this up for the podcast this week. So this is how it works for the West. Iowa wins no matter what. They're in the Big Ten championship game representing the West. Iowa loses and Purdue wins. Purdue's in the Purdue is in the Big Ten championship game. If Purdue and Iowa lose and Illinois wins, even if Wisconsin were to win, Illinois would make it, and if Illinois loses, Purdue loses, and Iowa wins, if Illinois and Purdue both lose, then Iowa would be in the Big Ten championship game. So basically, possible matchups are Ohio State or Michigan versus Iowa or Purdue or Illinois. Okay, so actually, take it back. Minnesota doesn't have a chance. It's really Iowa, Purdue, and Illinois that have the best chances to make the college football playoff, to make the Big Ten championship game. So that is the case scenario for college football going into this week. Let's call it. I think someone actually, I forget, but one team actually, they clinched their way to the conference championship. But mostly it's the same, and everything will be for sure clinched by the end of this week, as this week will definitely seal up who's going to be in the conference championship games and who will not be. NFL Week 11, what a week we got to talk about aside from the Browns game. That's going to be ugly to be talking about. Derrick Henry became the first player with 20-plus carries, 2+ completions, a rushing touchdown, and a passing touchdown in a single game since Walter Payton in 1983 in the 27-17 Titans win over the Packers. Bills murdered the Browns 31-23. The score does not tell you the story. Another great start, terrible finish. They just cannot change anything at half. They gave up last late touchdown right before the end of the first half. Just could not do anything. And both Woods and Kevin Stefanski are now in the hot seat. And if you're going to tell me, oh, I don't know about Stefanski, here's a stat that will change your mind. Kevin Stefanski, when he won Coach of the Year in 2020, before I started the podcast, was 11-5. Great. You want to know what his record is since? 11-12. The fact that his record since Coach of the Year, combined the last 2 years, is way worse than it was when he won Coach of the Year means he in trouble. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen before the season ends because they still have Watson coming back. Not this week, but next week against Houston. But he's on the hot seat. Joe Woods is also on the hot seat. Period. Leave it there. Eagles came back from down 13-3 and 16-10 to beat the Colts 17-16. Marcus Jones walk-off 84-yard punt return touchdown as the Patriots beat the Jets 10-3. Lions hammered the Giants 31-18. Devontae Adams. And in that game, with Jamal Williams having a 3-touchdown game, he has the most rushing touchdowns in the first 10 games ever, with 12, beating Barry Sanders from 1991, who had 9 in that win over the Giants. Devontae Adams had a 35-yard game-winning touchdown to beat the Broncos in overtime 22-16, and the Cowboys hammered the Vikings 40-3. That was so bad that they literally, CBS, the game was on CBS, changed it from the Cowboys nationally to the Steelers game. The Bengals ended up being the Steelers, by the way, which everyone was, a lot of people I know were not so happy about it. And then with 115 yards, Travis Kelce passes is Rob Gronkowski with the 33rd time for most 100-yard games in a career by a tight end in 30-27 Chiefs win over the Chargers. That is a Week 11 recap. This week in predictions, I went 10-4 overall. I am at 163-1. Standings update in the AFC East. Dolphins and Bills both have the same record for first place at 7-3, followed by Patriots and Jets both having a record at 6-4. AFC North, Ravens in first place at 7-3, followed by the 6-4 Bengals, followed by the 3-7 Browns and Steelers. AFC South, Titans in first place at 7-3, followed by the 4-6-1 Colts, followed by the 3-7 Jaguars, followed by the 1-8-1 Texans. AFC West, Chiefs are in first place at 8-2, followed by the 3-5 Chargers, followed by the 3-7 Raiders and Broncos. NFC, that's AFC. For the NFC East, Eagles in first place at 9-1, followed by the 7-3 Cowboys and Giants, followed by the 6-5 Commanders. NFC North, Vikings in first place at 8-2, followed by the 4-6 Lions, followed by the 4-7 Packers, followed by the 3-8 Bears. NFC South, Buccaneers in first place at 5-5, followed by the 5-6 Falcons, followed by the 4-7 Saints, followed by the 3-8 Panthers. And then NFC West, 49ers and Seahawks both up top at 6-4, followed by the 4-7 Cardinals, followed by the 3-7 Rams. That is the standings update. And now for Week 12 predictions. Which Thanksgiving games are this week? 3 Thanksgiving games. Bills-Lions in Detroit. So the Bills stay in Detroit for this week. Giants at Cowboys. Patriots at Vikings. Actual prediction. So Bills-Lions, I have the Bills. Giants at Cowboys, I have the Cowboys. Patriots and Vikings, I have the Vikings. That's for all the Thanksgiving games. Now this is beyond Thanksgiving games. Buccaneers and Browns, I'd love to say the Browns are going to win this game, but after last week, I have no confidence they're going to be able to win, even with how Tampa Bay has been struggling. I have Tampa Bay winning that game. Bengals at Titans, I have the Titans. Texans at Dolphins, I have the Dolphins. Bears at Jets, I have the Jets. Falcons at Commanders, I have the Commanders. Broncos at Panthers, I have the Broncos. Ravens at Jaguars, I have the Ravens. Chargers at Cardinals, I have the Chargers. Raiders at Seahawks, I have the Seahawks. Rams at Chiefs, I have the Chiefs. Saints at 49ers, I have the 49ers. Packers at Eagles. Sunday Night Football, I have the Eagles. And Steelers at Colts, I have the Colts. That is my Week 12 predictions. And that is this week's episode of the podcast, going into the rankings that come out tonight at 7 on ESPN. Back to normal. After last week, it was after a college basketball game that went into overtime. Actually, double overtime. But let's wrap things up. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode of Benny in the Booth podcast. On next week's episode, we'll have MLB offseason news that come out between now and then. We'll have NFL Week 12 to recap the Week 13 preview. We'll have college football Week 13 to recap with conference championship game preview and possible predictions. We'll see about predictions part and whatever else pops up between now and then. Thank you so much for watching and listening. If you are new here on YouTube, subscribe down below, hit the notification bell on so you're notified when I go live and or post a video. If you are new on audio, no matter the source of audio, follow the podcast, leave a review, and hit the notification bell on so you're notified when I post on there, which is soon after I go live on YouTube or post on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I'll see you tomorrow for the rankings video that come out tonight. And otherwise, happy Thanksgiving. Bye-bye.